Hello and welcome. Today we've got Clayton Thomas, and today we are going to be discussing how Michelle Obama could be the Democratic nominee for 2024. Now, just before we begin, you can subscribe to my Instagram channel at nicholas.veniamin for all my daily newsreels on there. Clay, it's so good to see you again. How are you, and what have you been up to, and how is also Dr. Christina Rahm doing?
Oh, it's Valentine's Day, so we're great today. It's been a bit since we've been able to hang out. We got to go to Davos, right? We were both panelists in Davos. Oh no, we'll probably dive into that a little bit.
Well, what happened at Davos? Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? I mean, some people are thinking Davos and it's all deep state. What's your take, and what are you doing over there?
I'll tell you from experience, right? This was the interesting part. Having the invitation last year to go over, and Christina ended up going over last year and speaking on a couple panels. And then we did a collab with the Greek House. And so it was kind of a collaboration with the Greek government at the forum. And it's important to understand, this process. You have the Congress, which is what the media does a good job portraying. And this is an interesting part, right? So the majority of our audience understands that you can't trust the media. Yet when the media puts out some information that's inflammatory in different aspects, people then trust the media. It was intriguing. But what goes on in Davos? You have the Congress, so you have Klaus and his little clan that sit in an echo chamber, right? Because no one else has a differing opinion on stuff, and they talk about their stupidity of 2030 and what they want to do. And 90+% of the people that are in Davos for the forum don't go to those events. They don't even listen to it, because what happens outside of that, the entire city of Davos, all of the little shops that you think of in a town turn into little hubs for different events, different speakers. So imagine having 300 different places that you can go that are put on by different companies, different countries, different organizations that are talking about innovation. As you're probably familiar, the biggest conversation piece of this year was all around AI, and the different aspects of AI. But 90% of the conversations, 90% of the events that go on are all around business and innovation. It's not around the bullshit that you hear the media put out that tries to shock people into this. But there's also a truth to this. Is there a modeling that the people that have a massive amount of money, power, and influence are trying to construct? Yes. Mm-hmm. But is that going to be something that they'd be able to follow through on? Yes and no. Because if the 8 billion of us decide to become the best versions of ourselves and actually start to resonate higher like we're made to, because what they know is that fear is almost as powerful as love and authenticity. Mm-hmm. But it's not one or two. Authenticity and love are the most powerful. Fear is number 3 or number 4, I think.
So what's their intention? What's Davos's intentions?
I think it's twofold. One, when Klaus started the forum a while ago, it was kind of to bring people together and talk about his stupid theories. But what it's turned into is a global networking event. You've got one period of time, that you have people all over the world that are coming. Some are coming for this event. You have heads of state. You've got business people. You've got different events that are going on. So most people are there to create relationships. You do have some of the bullshit, right? But you've also got this amazing opportunity of networking with people, because if you're there for a reason. You probably have some semblance of substance, but 80% of the stuff that even goes on outside is bullshit. So you really have to sift and sort. It's almost like you're in the rest of the world and looking and filtering what's going on.
So you and Dr. Christina Rahm are working on a humanitarian project. That's what you guys are doing. And you're trying to weave that into a network within that area and be smart about it, because we have to shine the light where darkness is. So is that what you're doing? Am I right to say that?
Yeah, I mean that's basically it. I mean, it's funny because we live in an environment right now that is controlled, right? And it's controlled in an aspect that those that understand the game and that really have made the rules over the last 100 years or so know that if you polarize people, right? Polarizing someone is not just shocking them to where they freeze for a second, but to polarize them is to create the left and the right. Mm-hmm. Right. And if you do that, you control the narrative, because they don't just control the left, they also control the right. The goal is to have everybody come towards the middle. And I think this is the important part for people to understand now, that if you're polar, you're part of the problem. And with what we're doing with the government here in the United States, because of the needs, from a healthcare change standpoint, what we're trying to do globally is teaching people that if we made a questionnaire of 100 questions, all different philosophies of society, and we've passed them out, and we had 300 million people in the United States answer this questionnaire. And it had different questions about which way you would lean politically, and are you more conservative or are you more liberal on these things? I will bet you that 90% of people will, if just given 100 questions, not telling them this is Democrat, this is left, this is Republican, this is right, this is conservative, this is libertarian, right? If you just give them the questions, the majority of us are actually going to skew towards the middle. Some might be left of center, some might be right of center. And very, very few of us would be polar. So in understanding that, so if you are one that is easily polarized, then you're easily controlled. But yes, if you're able to work on yourself, if you're able to become the best version of yourself, if you can remove that which has been put in you to program you, then you become an individual again. Exactly. And when you do that, it is us. It is people in general that are going to create change. It's not, there's no one coming to save us.
And this is why we have to reset everything we've been taught. We have to relearn everything. We have to be open-minded. We have to meditate as well, center ourselves to be aligned and find the truth within us as well, and the peace as well that we should have. Now, moving on to the situation with Michelle Obama, you've heard from one of your sources that she could be the Democratic nominee against Trump. And for some bizarre reason, she's going to take most of the votes, or a lot of the votes, away from Trump, which I really find it hard to believe. Because I think people are waking up.
Yeah, I don't find the aspect of Trump losing any votes because Michelle Obama is given the nomination at the DNC, because something unique is happening right now, right? They had their primaries and Biden won all the votes for the DNC, right, to be the incumbent, and they're not going to remove him from office. And then you start to see all this stuff come out. It's like, well, when he was a private citizen, he had all this classified documents and all this things stored in a garage somewhere. And, anybody could have had access to it, but that wasn't a problem because those were just classified documents. And, he's not mentally fit to stand trial. Yet he's the president of the United States right now. He's not of sound mental aptitude to be held responsible for his actions decades ago. Yet this is the guy we want running our country. Okay, that's a problem. So what the path has been laid out to go, okay, they're going to play this game for a little bit, and then they're going to have to make the call of who do we have run, that can do this. And that Michelle Obama, because if we looked at the last 4 years of who's been pulling the strings behind the scenes, or who did Biden serve with initially, we know, we could suspect that someone else is dictating the terminology that's going on, right? They're pulling the strings on the puppet. So for them to be able to bring that family back into power per se, is, I think, their only play. And the the information that I was getting yesterday that came out of DC, they're like, look, statistically, there's 75 million women that are registered to vote. And because of the abortion debate, they're going to say that, oh, this is how we stand, and they're going to pull the women's vote. I don't see that being any semblance of the case, because of there's one component to this. If we have mail-in voting, we're fucked. Sorry. Game's over anyway. It doesn't matter. Before anything's done, you can just know that Trump lost by 5 million votes. There could be 115 million registered voters in the United States. Trump could get 85 million votes again, and he's still going to lose by 5 million. You go, well, how did you do that with 115 million registered voters and there's 170 million votes counted? Well, see what? There were other options. So, I mean, that's what we saw in 2020, right?
Yeah.
So there's so many questions in this of how this thing's going to play out, that if the game is still rigged, it doesn't matter who's running, because the game's already rigged, right? We know what the outcome is going to be. So we've got to see how that plays out, who they're going to have. I think, from the word I was getting, and when you have, U.S. senators and that are the ones that are saying, look, this is what's going to happen. This is what's coming. This is how they're going to play it. They're getting ready to stack the Supreme Court. I mean, the wealth taxes that are coming, they want to wipe out billionaires. They want to turn millionaires into paupers, and they want, as Klaus Schwab said, you will have nothing and you will like it. They have a tax plan to take a billionaire to broke in almost 7.5 to 9 years, because of how they're going to tax people that have assets, tax people that own companies, tax people that have wealth. They're going to do everything they can to seize everything that they want from those that have earned it.
And it's a shame, because I've been having a lot of conversation recently on taxes, and I think one of the biggest killers as well here in the United States, which we're not used to in Europe, by the way. You guys have property tax, and that's like having another mortgage on top of your mortgage. And then you've got HOAs, which is another thing, which is, I understand it's a service thing that always goes up. It's not regulated. It should be regulated and checked and, and maintained, but they can just switch it up 30, 40% just like that overnight. And it really destroys and disrupts people's livelihoods, because they have a set income, and it really changes everything for them. And I think that should be illegal. But the property tax for me is really bad. There should be a peaceful protest into halting property taxes, especially on your property that you live in, because it's your home, it's your family. Why should you pay property tax on something that's personal, something that's your home and doesn't even generate an income, and you're paying tax on it? I don't understand. And then when you sell the property, you've got to pay capital gains tax. Well, why can't they just tax you on that?
Is it not interesting that we're talking about no taxation without representation? Are we there again? Right? And is it not funny that it's the Brit that's going, I don't understand this tax stuff? I'm like, you know what? We've had this argument once before, back in the 1770s. They're like, I think we're sick and tired of this shit. Because there's never been a society that's been taxed into affluence or taxed into success. It's one of the signs of the greatest falls of any society is, when those that are in power realize that they're not going to be in power very long. They're like, well, we need to start seizing more assets. So let's tax property. Let's tax, unearned income or unearned capital gains. You go, hold on.
Yeah. Clay, I want to say, this is why people want to rent. They've got no property tax. They've got no HOAs. Just pay your rent and you're done. No banks, no mortgages, no loans. Just, and it's so much easier. It's better to have properties, rent them out, right? And that covers that. If you make a profit, happy days, that pays your rent. Profit pays your rent, no headaches. In the United States, it's supposed to be the land of opportunity. And I've always loved the United States. I love how you guys are creating lovely music, movies and stuff like that from the past. And I come here and there's all these taxes. And I'm thinking, this is the land of opportunity. I want to let the people know, because a lot of you don't know this, but in the UK, we don't have property tax. You have your mortgage, your water and your electric, which is peanuts every month. You pay off your mortgage whenever you want, and you don't have to pay there's no property taxes. You just pay your utilities, your Wi-Fi, your water. But if it can be like that in the UK and everywhere else in Europe, why can't it be like that in the land of opportunity?
Well, it goes back to the aspect of who wants to control the majority of the opportunity, right? And I think that's the difficult part of when are we, because this gets into a conversation of an environmental toxicology and the process that's been done for the last 50 to 70 years to put a population into a box where they're docile and controllable. And they've done it chemically, right? It's genius on what they've done. I mean, you can't overcome free will, but you sure as hell can manipulate it. And if you can make people weak enough where they're like, oh, well, we're not going to push back on that. And, I think Joe Rogan did a great talk on this briefly with, I forgot who he was doing one of his interviews with, of understanding the psychology of how to take over human will. You push them to the point where they start to fight, then you back off. You go, oh, okay, you're good. And then you push them a little more and they back up, and to the point where like, whoa, that's too much. And then you give them that space again, and you go back to doing stuff, and then you'll push them some more, and people will back up. You're like, whoa, we're not going to go past this point again. And then you stop and look, and then you realize that you're a mile away from where you started, but it was something that was done gradually, and you gave up all of that space. You gave up every bit of your freedoms by not standing your ground and not being willing to take up arms, not being willing to fight back, not being willing to stand for, oh, Congress just passed more laws to tax this and tax this. And, oh, there's a carbon tax and all of this bullshit. It's up to us. It's on us, and toxic people. This is the crazy part. Toxic people will create a toxic environment. We want to put the blame on those that are controlling us, but they're actually not controlling us because they're not allowed to. What they're doing is putting us in a position where we make poor choices, and they're hijacking our free will with intelligent design to say, you know what, you're loaded with mercury, you're loaded with aluminum, you're loaded with parasites and fungus and all this stuff. So you're no longer in control. And you know what, now you need a little help. We'll give you some money from the state, and just don't work, don't do these things, don't fight back, don't push back. We'll give you free abortions. That way, if you get pregnant, don't worry, you can kill that new being that's coming into the world. Why are they pushing that? Because maybe, as you hear on different channels, that we are this spiritual being, and we bring, this body is meant to bring souls into this world to experience what's going on. Why would a group want to kill all of those souls?
Yeah, they're trying to destroy the souls through destroying our bodies. And the thing is, Clay, they're destroying us with the ingredients they're putting in the food. For an example, bread. You go and buy bread. It's supposed to only have 4 ingredients in it, but they have a list of ingredients like that, big ones like that. And the thing is, yesterday I went to have steak. And I just ate steaks all night. I have 4 different steaks. It was like a platter, and they cooked it in front of me. And I can the next day and that evening, I felt inflamed, not bloated. I felt inflamed because of God knows what they're putting in those ingredients. It's not homemade anymore, and they're killing us. And this is why it's so important that Trump comes back and he finishes the job, because we've got a lot of work to do to put this country back and the world back to the way it was once upon a time, before these deep state evil people have come to destroy us. And so I've got really big into how to detox myself and get my metabolism back to the way it should be.
Well, and those are the keys now of understanding that we've been poisoned, but it's not just what's in the food now, right? And it's the hard part for people to accept, that we've been poisoned for about 5 generations now. And that's not just my conversation. That's in a playbook, right? They've known what mercury does. Mercury is the worst neurotoxin known to man. It disrupts every system of the human body, but it'll do it differently in every individual. When I started this journey 19 years ago, after spending, my last 45 years has been in integrative health in humans and animals. So it always been around, the importance of diet and environment and lifestyle, but then realizing, that the real issue is just environmental toxicity and pollution. And then you've got to take care of that. And then you can start building on top of it. That in 1970, the World Health Organization had published all the data that this is before they were hijacked too, but they had published all the data that going back to the research that was done in the 1950s, that mercury was the primary cause of virtually every chronic degenerative disease known. And mercury will exacerbate the effects of everything else that you're exposed to, whether it's lead or aluminum or cesium or strontium or arsenic or, glyphosate or PBEs, PBDs, PCBs, PFAS, all these different chemicals and pollutants. They just continually compound and they amplify. And we're exposed to this stuff in the womb, right? So people want to look at where we are now and say they're poisoning us. I'm like, no, they've poisoned us, and they've poisoned us so much that now they can just put stuff in your food and you're going to eat it. You're not going to question it. You're just like, oh, wow, red dye is great. Right. Oh, well, what was that? You have people talk about it now. They're like, oh, well, we're cutting out red dye. Great. You've been drinking that shit for 3 decades. So what do you think got you to this point? Right. You go outside the United States. They really don't have a lot of obesity issues. When Americans travel, Europeans will look at them and go, what the fuck is wrong with you? Right. But here in America, 42% of the population is not just fat and overweight. They're obese. Right. And why is that? Is it because Americans are lazy? No, it's because Americans have been freaking poisoned. Right. And so this complex aspect, now you hear the conversations of diabetes type 3. That conversation started a decade ago, by the way. This is not new, of understanding, that insulin control and blood sugar management, insulin resistance are, major contributors. But then you have to ask the question, what causes insulin resistance? What causes diabetes? Well, you can go on PubMed, do a little literature review, and you'll find that, mercury is at the forefront and the primary foundational etiology of endocrine disruption, which is what causes insulin resistance and diabetes. So you go, okay, do we want to talk about, diabetes issues, or do we want to talk about what causes the problems and how you can address all these? Because you live in an environment that's been hijacked by intelligent design. Our intelligent design has been hijacked by intelligent design by people that know how to change our bioscience engineering. Fortunately, there's a savant that left that space, that understands cloning, that understands molecular design, that understands the highest levels of bioscience engineering, that has been able to take nature and say, great, we're going to use the most powerful components of nature, and we're going to use the science of quantum physics and in frequencies and intention and proper formulations that you learn in biotech, the use of energy and such. These are things that people are talking about now that the biotech industry has been using for decades.
Yeah. So
we
need to do something now about it, because we're just killing ourselves.
Yeah, willingly. Right. And I think that's the hard part is it's all by choice. But the one thing that's also important when we launched Root 4 years ago now was also understanding that our health has been hijacked, but also you have to follow the money. Right. And if we're constantly living and working in an environment where we're pushing money back into the beast and into the machine, then you're never going to get free of it, because money as an asset is really important, but it's also a tool, right? Why is the one thing that Ukraine keeps asking for? It's just money, right? They're not going to win a war, but they're like, give us more money, just give us more money, because they're using that for trafficking and, doing all these different things. So as an American, as a human in this world, you have to understand where you're directing your spending. if the companies, if the products, if the services that you like to use, that you consume, don't align with what your mission, your vision, your purpose is, you probably should shift it. And the one thing for me is if you're a consumer, because it's consumers, it's us that create all the value for companies. If the companies that you like aren't reciprocating the value that you're creating, you should probably look for alternatives, right? That was my goal in creating an ecosystem that shows that social sharing works, right? Because we created all the value for Facebook, for Instagram, for Twitter, for Netflix, for WhatsApp, for all of these social apps, for all of these different social organizations, social media, for X, for everything else. Yet unless you own a bunch of stock, you haven't been able to receive anything else. But it's been our behavior that's either monitored, monetized, or tracked. And then it's also our desire to just share with our friends that allows them to create even more customers. So if all of the money that's going into that isn't coming back to you in some aspect for the value that you're creating, you need to look on how you can redirect it. And that's really the goal, because it's not just, I just need to take care of myself. I got to take care of my health. Yeah, but you also need money, right? And if you can create value, and we create value every day by our behavior, then you should be rewarded for it too.
Yeah. What one of the ways can they do that?
Well, I mean, to use it simply with what we've created with Root, we have an algorithmic fintech ecosystem that's all built around this concept that when you become a customer, of the brand and you like the products, you're going to buy them. It's just like going to Amazon. But when you get the outcomes that we get, right, and you've had Marina talk about those quite a bit. We've gone through these in depth. All the stuff for the last 4 years that people are worried about getting clot shots and all the stuff. Great, that's already been handled. We've got that done. We've got all the clinical case studies on reversing it. Coffee is one of the most polluted things on the planet, right? But everybody loves to drink coffee and it's loaded with mold, right? So we solved that one. We've got Rom Roast. It's actually completely clean. Just the new batches that are just being done right now just got a 91 cup score. So it's one of the best coffees in the world, one of the top 1% of the coffees in the world. And so you've got all of these options with the solutions that are designed to take care of people. But at the same time, when you use those and you find that they benefit you, and if they don't buy them. But if they do, two things are going to happen. One, you're going to continue to consume them. Two, you're going to tell your friends. But when you tell your friends, when you share the same code that you got when you created your account, the algorithms will actually track all of that and reward you for it. When you create value, you get rewarded, right? And this is the important part, that if you're not looking at what you're doing and looking at what you're consuming and looking at where your money is going, if you very simply look at what you're spending and it's going to companies that feed the beast or are part of what is a problem, then you should probably look at redirecting that and look at applying it better. And that the food you're eating is completely poisoned. That's not in question either. So what are you doing to find better sources of sustenance that can give you everything that you need, that can save you money and keep you from eating the shit that's killing you?
Now, with the Sculpt thing is a capsule that Dr. Christina Ram made, which detoxes your body to the extent that it makes your metabolism and your organs function better, and you start losing weight, and you haven't even trained. You haven't even changed your diet, and you're seeing the weights drop. Now, Marina, she shared me some photos that she got permission from to show my viewers on the next show we do together, that they've lost about 4 kilos in a week just from detoxing themselves from this natural capsule that Dr. Christina Ram has made. I'm going to leave the link right below so people can get this, but can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Sculpt is gangster. I'll tell you that right now. So there's the big conversation about Ozempic in the United States and semaglutide, right? And because people are insulin resistance is not something that just happens in fat people either. People that are really skinny also are insulin resistant. So your insulin metabolism is insanely important. That your body is able to use insulin properly and processed carbs, processed sugar. So what what Christina was able to do is source some ingredients that already have double-blind placebo-controlled studies behind them to cause weight loss, right? Through proper insulin metabolism. So when you combine this with something like Clean Slate that's doing the detoxification work, but then you can take a couple of ingredients that are known to help you block sugar, to help you metabolize insulin properly and correct proper insulin metabolism. And this is really important if you are insulin resistant, or if you have problems with insulin and blood sugar, that this is something that will be very advantageous for you. That when you do this, your body will reboot, and proper insulin metabolism will allow your body to start correcting your figure. That's why we call it Sculpt, because it's not a weight loss product per se, because once your body has found its ideal figure, one, you start eating differently, because your cravings for sugar and everything go away. They just cease. You won't eat as much. And I'm one who loves to eat. I will tell you, if you ask my friends, they know. It's like, go out to dinner with him, you'll see him crush it. But I don't eat as much anymore because I just don't need it. I'll pick at stuff, which is really rare for me. But like you were hearing from Marina, I mean, we have people that are completely reconfiguring, losing kilos, a pound or two a day, just within a day. And it just starts. So.
And this is the beauty thing about it, because they're seeing the results, they're telling their friends, Marina's one of them, and they're all getting rewarded for it. And This is a great programming that you're doing, because one, you're investing in your health. You're going against of the grain of what the deep state wants to do to us. We're telling our friends because we want to help them. We're being rewarded. It's a win-win. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and it has to be. And it's the same thing with your channel and what you provide. You've got 115,000 followers on your Telegram, right? And you're doing a great job to create information and knowledge, and doing amazing interviews so people can have some content. So what people have to understand, that if you find products like I'll take Sculpt, I'll take Rom Roast, whatever Root has, because of our ecosystem, that if you've watched what we've talked about, if you've watched what Marina's talked about, if you've listened to any of the interviews you've done with Christina, go, okay, there's probably some truth behind all this stuff. Maybe it just works. Maybe I'll try it. When people that watch this and use your code, they're supporting not just Root, not just themselves, but you, right?
Absolutely.
So it's helping fund everything. But the important part is that they can also share with their friends, which they get rewarded. You get rewarded. They get the health benefits. Everybody benefits financially. So you see this circular economy start to take place where, we can function outside of the system. And that's kind of important, because while we know who we want to win the 2024 election, and I'll say that I'm very close to that environment. Very, yes. Very, very, very close, very heavily involved, right? And even though I'm wearing blue today, I bleed red, right? But if an instance happens where he doesn't win, then what?
I think there will be a big riot, a big peaceful protest or something.
But is peace really going to handle it? Mm-hmm. If we get to that point, the term, and this is the fun part with being peaceful, that Americans forget because of how poisoned we are. To be peaceful means that you are capable of absolute carnage. If you are not capable of absolute carnage, you are not peaceful. You're harmless. Mm-hmm. And some of our patriotic friends that actually invaded a foreign territory on January 6th, a couple of years ago, ended up invading a foreign territory and got locked up for doing stupid shit. Right?
Yeah.
However you want to position it. The problem is that the District of Columbia is not part of the United States of America, and the Americans that went there actually invaded a foreign territory and acted out.
Yeah, of course.
They didn't even and the hard part is they didn't even have to do anything to act out. Those that have control over that environment just said, you know what, we're going to make an example of you. So guess what? You get to go to jail. And then everybody wants to throw their arms up and go, wait a minute, this is a tragedy. Well, guess what? You didn't understand the rules. You didn't know what you were walking into. If you don't understand the environment that you're going into, you will become a victim of your environment. And we're at this interesting point. And if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not doing everything you can to take care of your health and your finances right now, life is going to suck for you over the next 4 to 5 years. It's going to absolutely be horrible.
And it's
that's it.
You're absolutely right. We have to take our power back. It's our responsibility to protect our health as soon as possible because we're not getting any younger. But Clayton, thank you so much for sharing everything with us today. It's been quite a while since we did an interview. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to the viewers before we finish?
Follow this guy. We haven't been able to hang out. I'll be in Florida here next week, at the end of next week. So we got to hang out if you're in Miami. But if we're over in London, we got to hang out over there too. But I think this is the big part.
Absolutely.
Support those that you support, right? If you support the message, find ways that you can also support the message.
No, absolutely. Well, I'm going to leave the link below to Sculpt. It's for Root Brand. It's right below, so you can access it right now and have a read. But Clayton, thank you so much. It's been an honor, and we'll speak again very soon. You take care. Bye-bye.